Hey YouTube, what you're about to watch is a new segment we call Change My Mind. Pretty simple. We go out and set up in public and pick a topic. In this video, it's Second Amendment, where I just say, hey, listen, I'm pro-gun, change my mind. And we actually allow people from other points of view to come up and proactively change my mind. I'd love to hear from you what topics you would like to hear discussed on this. Also, it's important, this isn't about just a debate or a highlight reel. The point to this exercise is to actually get people to question their own point of view and see if their argument is rational. And maybe at the end of it, they'll end up changing their own mind. So, pro-gun, Second Amendment, change my mind, enjoy.
The son of the queen, the left hand.
Can you like going? I like to kiss.
What was your name?
Danny.
Danny. Stephen, nice to meet you, Danny.
Likewise.
Okay. I'm very pro-gun, pro-Second Amendment. Change my mind. I'm open.
First, I have a little clarification. Do you believe guns have uses other than hunting?
Yes.
What do you believe those are?
I believe that the Second Amendment, I should clarify, is about the basic right to self-preservation. Be that from internal threats, be that from domestic threats, or be that from a threat of a tyrannical government. That's the purpose and intent of the Second Amendment. That is my contention.
I agree that the Second Amendment has that intention. However, I do think that guns aren't necessarily the most effective way of defense.
Okay.
I believe that guns are so easy to
Sorry, would you mind holding the mic just to you? Just so I
Okay.
can, yeah, sorry.
So-
Just people are talking, so I get loud.
I believe that if you have a gun, if, for example, in the case of a home invasion,
Sure.
if you are a good gun owner, have it in a safe place, and not like under your pillow or anything,
Right.
and you take care of it, then by the time you get to your gun, it probably is already too late to defend yourself.
Sure. Well, I guess let's define sort of, maybe we're not disagreeing. It seems like maybe you're pro-Second Amendment. You believe that people have the right to purchase and bear arms. As to whether an individual is effective in defending their house with their own firearm, I can tell you that mine is very easily accessible, and many of them are, and that wouldn't be the scenario. So it doesn't change the right for me to have that firearm to protect my home.
I also believe that there is definitely a reason to have them for sport, not just hunting, but also aiming practice, gun
Sure.
ranges. I have a friend who was on their way to actually becoming a professional marksman, but then they got glaucoma.
Yeah, but that's not what the Second Amendment is about. So I guess we agree on that.
Yeah.
You're probably not looking to change my mind on that. You agree people have the right to purchase and bear arms.
Yes, I have a disagreement with mostly the concealed carry laws and such, in that I believe that having a gun for the purposes I've set out is perfectly fine, but that's no reason to carry one around in public, particularly because it could be used against you. Someone could grab it off your person and threaten you with it.
Someone could take your car and run you over with it.
Yes, but
Does that mean that we can't sell you a car?
cars actually kill way more people than guns, but cars are necessary to get to point A from point A to point B. They're
No, they're not. You can take public transportation. You can take a bike. You can walk. You can
not
take a
everywhere.
skateboard.
Not everywhere has public
There's
transportation.
always a way.
Many
But my
rural
point is
areas, you need a car in order to get several miles to the grocery store to get your food for the day.
Let me ask you this. Is it your contention that because something you can legally own could be used against you or someone else, the government has the right to tell you that you couldn't own said item? Is that your presupposition?
I believe that it's not like you can't own it. You can own it. It's that you can't, for no good reason, bring it out in public.
What would be no good reason? What would be a good reason for someone to be able to exercise their right to protect themselves?
A good reason is I am bringing this gun to the gun range to go.
No, to protect myself. Let's get rid of the sports and the hunting aspect of it, right? The Second
I
Amendment
believe
exists to
that
protect
there's-
yourself. So why is it, again, I'm hearing, why does the government have the right, if I'm a law-abiding citizen, to tell me that I cannot protect myself with my firearm?
Because the whole point of having a government is to trust the government to protect you.
No,
To
that's not true.
Because as a woman, I feel very threatened walking around at night on my own.
You should probably get a gun.
I have an app on my phone where I can set it up where one touch brings the police to my location, and it actually alerts the police that I might have a call when I click a certain button. Like if I'm feeling somewhat threatened, I click one button.
Let me ask you a question here real quick.
And
Let me ask you a question. The police come. What would the police be able to do that you wouldn't?
They are able to physically, if not intimidate, then
But let's say it
contend with
escalates.
this.
Let's say a very violent attacker, okay? You call the police. You are calling the police
Because I fear for my life.
and they would protect you
Yes.
with
With firearms, because they are trained and they have a legal responsibility to use those firearms properly in a way that casual firearms owners do not.
Final question. Do you believe we have a police brutality problem in the United
Yes.
States?
I do. I believe that police need to be trained better than they are now.
But you believe in a society where police exclusively are granted the rights to carry firearms?
No. Police, not only police. I say police should have firearms to deal with violent individuals that threaten the police officer's life.
Okay.
Whereas the everyday person should be able to rely on the police to do that. Now the problem we have is that we aren't able to rely on the police to do that.
Right.
I don't think the solution to that is get guns. I think the solution to that is reform the police department.
I disagree with you. Do you think that maybe after this conversation, hearing some of the things that you said, talking about how you believe it's the job to trust the government, and then have talked about inherent corruption in the government police force, I would encourage you and hope that maybe you would reconsider some of these stances moving forward about having a society where only the police have the right to carry firearms. I think maybe we would find some common ground on that. Think about it, and then maybe if I'm still here, come back and we can talk about it. But I know we got some other people here in line.
Okay.
What was your name again?
Danny.
Danny. Thank you so much, Danny. I appreciate
Thank
you
you.
taking the time.
And one last little quip. I'm also particularly vulnerable to police as a disabled trans person. So I do really understand the police brutality issue.
Right.
But I think that guns aren't the answer. So thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers. Go founder.
It just isn't done that well. The son of the queen, the left hang.
Could you like go and I'd like to kiss.
All right. What was your name, sir?
Sammy, what's your name?
Sam. Steven. Nice to meet you, Sam. Would you mind holding the microphone up when you talk, just so we can, you know how those work, talking to the netty thing.
Yeah.
Sam. So you said you're a pro-gun, but you believe in some controls.
Yeah.
Okay. You're in college. You're obviously a smart guy. I think it's important then to define what it is we're discussing, right?
Yeah.
When you say some controls, what kind of controls?
Controls that actually, a lot of Americans, when they're trying to get a license for guns or they're trying to purchase guns or whatever, they should be able to document it, and not with paper, but with machine documentation. And on top of that, they should go through a psych evaluation of if they're too violent or they have a past of being too violent. Then they should be restricted or completely opted out of even owning a gun, depending on how violent they are.
So quick, before we go, so you are saying that if somebody has a documented history of violence, they should not be able to purchase a firearm.
Yes, or they should be restricted to only probably a handgun.
Okay, well that's interesting. I'd like to go back to that. Do you mind holding the mic a little closer? Sorry, because everyone's getting loud here. So if I were to tell you it's already the law, I assume you've never purchased a firearm.
No.
Okay, it's already the law. You can't buy a firearm if you're a violent criminal. It's not allowed.
Yeah.
And they said, but maybe only restricted to a handgun.
Yeah.
I find that curious. Why would someone be restricted to a handgun above other guns?
Because here's the thing. Again, every American has a right to own a firearm, and that's the Second Amendment. We cannot change that. We cannot take that away from them. Sure. And that's something we should always protect.
I appreciate that.
But demoting them down to, let's say, a handgun, that doesn't take away the fact that, hey, maybe someone might come into their house and, might steal something or might affect their family or whatever. And just because they're a criminal doesn't always mean they're just like always going to be violent and all that stuff. If they have a handgun to at least protect themselves and not cause mass damage to like what happened in Las Vegas,
Right.
then that way they're protecting themselves and they won't be out there to harm others. And if they do, we also have the police at hand to at least limit casualties and all that stuff.
Forgive me if it seems like I'm interrupting. I just because you go to, I want to kind of address each point so we can find out whether we agree or not. So my understanding is that you're saying we should limit these people to handguns,
Yes.
as opposed to long rifles, semi-automatic rifles,
Yes.
with which they could commit mass damage. So in order to
Yes.
mitigate the damage.
Yes.
What if I were to tell you that unequivocally, it's not even close, the vast majority of mass shootings take place with handguns?
Well, again, people put modifications on the guns, and I understand that a lot of mass shootings also happen with handguns.
No, most. Almost nearly all, statistically.
Yeah, but I also think that actually, let me step back a bit.
Okay.
And where I'm pulling this idea of handguns is there was an article I read about someone creating a handgun that only registered to yours like biometrics. Have you heard of it?
Yes, I have. It's
Yeah.
a disaster, but yes, continue.
It is a disaster, but the reason I'm touching on that is because it's a really good idea. And the NRA, which I kind of have a problem with right now, is not letting us research guns, in a sense, or making them completely safe. As from what I understand, I'm not too educated on what the NRA is doing right now.
They
It's
actually
just
probably conduct more research on guns than anyone in the country.
Yeah, and they always find a way to like make sure there's no gun controls going on and all that stuff. But let me say, people are able to put modifications on their guns, which of course should be completely unallowed, no matter what. Like bump stocks. There's also this.
What is a bump stock?
A bump stock is basically if you fire a gun, that thing just bounces back. There's also a needle in which you can put in your guns, where if you pull the trigger, it constantly forces your finger back, so it's kind of like an automatic rifle.
Right.
And that's, of course, should be illegal as well. And going back to why I'm saying demote people to handguns, yes, they're almost all mass shootings are committed with handguns. Again, I'm saying people should go through background checks and all that stuff.
But that already happened. That already exists.
But it's not too refined.
Yeah.
I mean,
here's one thing I would say, respectfully, and I do disagree with you on several instances, but I appreciate you taking the time. I think that there's a discussion taking place in this country,
yeah.
and it's between two camps. You're not going to like what I'm about to say, but it's not meant as a personal insult.
Yeah, no.
It's between gun owners and the completely ill-informed. If you've purchased a firearm, you would know that everything you've just said is untrue.
Yeah.
And I don't say that to insult you.
No,
As a
you're
matter of
correct.
fact, I would recommend you go purchase a firearm for yourself, even if you're getting a gun, a revolver.
Okay.
You know what I mean? A .22 revolver.
Okay.
You'll go through a background check. You'll see, asking the questions. They're going to ask for your license. They're going to make sure it's the same address that you currently live. It'll probably be the most stringent background check you've ever gone through. It's more stringent than Social Security.
Okay.
So all of those things already exist. A bump stock is not what you described it to be. As a matter of fact, I can make a bump stock with my belt loop.
Really?
Yes, it's about it's a technique. A bump stock allows you to optimize a certain technique.
Okay.
And it's already illegal to modify a gun to a fully automatic rifle.
Okay.
This is already illegal, right? So someone taking a firearm and modifying it to make it an illegal firearm is already against the law. It's already against the law to purchase a firearm if you are a convicted felon or if you're a violent criminal. You mentioned the NRA. There's so much research conducted on firearms. As a matter of fact, if I were to ask you, how many defensive uses do you think there are of firearms each year? If you were to guess,
I would say a good couple 100,000, maybe into millions.
Yeah, into millions. Yeah. How many gun deaths do you think there are?
I would say around 10 to 20,000 per year.
It's actually a little higher than that, but lower than that if you remove suicides.
Okay.
So again, these are important, and a lot of these come from pro-firearm associations. I think what is important when we have this discussion, and I hope it's been illuminated, maybe you'll rethink some of your points of view, I would really encourage you to buy a firearm. Yeah. Even if you go right back and just trade it in. You can buy it and then give it right back to the gun shop, and they'll consign it where they run a background. So if you don't want to spend the money.
Yeah.
Because it's an experience where you learn the things that you thought were not true.
Okay.
And I think it starts from the presupposition, and I think we start in the common ground. The Second Amendment is not about hunting. It's about the basic right to self-preservation.
Okay.
And we either support the idea that we have the right to protect ourselves, both our houses, our families, our property, from local threats or tyrannical threats from the government. We either agree on that, and I think we do, or we don't.
Yeah.
And if you agree that it's a right, like free speech is a right, the government cannot remove a basic human right unless you've foregone it by violating someone else's right.
Yeah. And I mean, I love the Second Amendment. I love the Constitution, and I love America of how it is. And I just love the idea that if some other country tries to invade us, we have the firearm. Not only do we have the police and a great military, but we also have the American people who are definitely going to be pissed off and shoot the other
I
guys.
appreciate that you recognize that. What was your name again, sir?
Sammy.
Sammy?
But
Thank you so much, Sammy.
One thing I want to ask, and you were telling me to go ahead and purchase a firearm. Now, I don't mean to sound offensive to anyone or any viewer.
No problem at all.
The thing is, I'm a person of color, and I'm not even a black person. I'm just a brown person.
Yeah.
And the stereotype I'm always presented is I'm basically a terrorist, just by my skin color, right? No one knows my background and all that stuff. And I've come from a very conservative location back in Florida.
Sure.
Now, if I purchase a firearm and if I am seen around with a gun, I know for a fact people are always going to view me as a threat.
Well, first
So
off,
there's
no
that.
one's saying you don't need to carry it around out in the open.
Yeah.
You legally can now in Texas, but concealed carry open carry, that's further on down the trail. Isn't it wonderful that there are horrible racist assholes out there, right? Who might look at you a certain way because of the color of your skin and think that you're a terrorist.
Yeah.
Isn't it wonderful that that doesn't affect your rights?
Yeah, that's completely amazing.
Yeah. It doesn't affect, because guess what? That background check doesn't matter. If you haven't committed a crime, you have the same rights as that racist asshole down the street.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's the only thing is, we either have to agree on the freedom of the right for all of us to protect ourselves, or we don't. And I can't imagine what it's like. I'm sure you've dealt with racist encounters your whole life, and it's always sad to hear. But again, that doesn't dictate policy. And I would look at that and say, hey, isn't it great that despite what one individual thinks, it doesn't affect your rights as an American citizen? And that's the beauty of blind justice. And if you give that authority to the government, or if you give that authority to an individual or a committee, guess what? It just takes one of those racist people to make that decision for you, or vice versa. So it's pretty important, right? Especially for minorities, to ensure that their rights aren't infringed upon by the mob of the majority, right? I don't think that anyone should be able to vote that brown people can't have guns any more than I think no one should be able to vote that anyone here can't have guns.
Yeah, but it's also, let's say I'm going to defend myself at home with the gun I've purchased and all that stuff, and I happen to shoot the intruder.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's a threat or not. Now, here comes the main problem as to why I personally won't buy a gun. Though I love guns, I won't buy a gun. If that gets out into the media, I'm a brown person with a gun that killed an intruder.
Yeah.
Now, in that scenario already, I'm already gonna be classified as someone who's, again, very violent and all that stuff. But
I don't necessarily know if that's true. What are you studying?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm a computer engineer.
Computer engineer.
Yeah.
I would encourage you, I know there are other people there, so we have to go, Sammy, but I would encourage you to read up more on the Socratic method. Because I think that if you question some of the things, and I think we've done it here, where you've reestablished some of your views a little bit, I think if you question some of the premises of your positions here, you'll realize they're not necessarily true.
Yeah,
and not necessarily something that you can certainly confirm is true.
Yeah.
And I do think, especially in today's era, more important than political correctness, more important than sensitivity, more important than opinion, is more important than even common ground is truth.
Yes.
And I think if you examine some of your premises, I say this respectfully, I think you'll find that they are incorrect.
Yeah, and that's what I really hope from coming into here, because I'm saying I want gun control, right?
Right.
And just sitting down and hearing about this, of course, I listen to TYT and I listen to very progressive news outlets. I'm not innocent in any ways with this biased media.
Who do you listen to on the right?
On the right, I would say
on the right, like TYT on the far left, right? Socialists. Yeah. Who do you listen to balance that out?
To be honest, nothing else. Mostly I listen to CNN. Anything on TYT is just main events that happen around the world. I never really take their side because, again, I don't like socialism that much. I think there has to be a balance.
So do you think watching TYT and CNN, do you feel maybe as though they've almost to a startling degree have under-equipped you?
Yes, definitely.
No, and that's because, and maybe it's by design. Like the fact that some that you may not know that there already are background checks.
Yeah.
If they're news, that's their job to let you know.
Yeah, and that's definitely a case. And again, I'm also not comfortable with watching Fox News because I know there's some stuff that are not true over there, and I've already found that out.
Sure.
But again, going to CNN, of course, I also know some stuff are not true. But I didn't know it would lie to this extent. Again, TYT, great people there. I really think they just need to bump up the information a bit more. And it's just...
Bump up the information.
Yeah.
Maybe you could start watching some more right-leaning channels.
Yeah,
Balance it
definitely.
out.
But it's just kind of heartbreaking that I'm looking at only like left channels. I'm still not getting enough information, or I'm not getting all the information I need.
Right.
Yeah, and thank you for this experience and telling me all this stuff.
Thank you, Sammy. I appreciate it, brother.
Right.
God bless in your studies.
right,
Engineering, that's no joke. It's not...
Are you guys students here?
No, I'm not a student here.
Do you have your ID book?
I do have ID with me.
Take a look at that.
Is there a reason for needing to look at my identification, officer? There you are, YouTube. I remain unconvinced. Though I did enjoy meeting the Oracle from the Minority Report, I do think, hopefully, this is a productive thing to do. A lot of people talk about wanting to engage in discussion, and they don't do it. You don't have to agree. You don't have to find common ground. You just have to be rational. And would love to hear what other topics you'd like discussed. And subscribe by hitting the subscribe button or one of these other videos, I think, playing in boxes. I'm not entirely sure because YouTube changes everything. This might not even exist anymore because it's been struck down. Oh well, what do you do? YouTube overlords. They're going to do. YouTube overlord going to YouTube overlord.